First, thank you, Valparaiso University. Thank you, TEDx, for this opportunity. My name is Charles Carter. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, grew up right down the road in Gary, Indiana, and I am a 2015 alumni of Valparaiso University and a co-founder of a Greater Good Foundation. And this is my brother and business partner,
Cody. I am also an alum of Valpo, 2016. I'm born and raised, Maywood, Illinois to be exact, and also I am a co-founder of a Greater Good Foundation.
Not long after we graduated from these hallways, we started an organization by the name of a Greater Good Foundation. And our focus in this organization is serving high-risk, underperforming youth across the Chicagoland area. And what we teach them is exactly what we'll be introducing to you today. And that is how your thoughts create your behavior and how your behavior create the results that you have in your life. And we started to learn this information right in these hallways of Valparaiso University.
This information Chuck is talking about is personal development. What is personal development? Personal development is the ability to self-assess your thoughts, your behaviors, your actions, but not only for yourself, but for other people. So when we got engaged in personal development, it wasn't your typical way. We were not at the Library of Valpo searching in the self-help section, but we got introduced to it through a business. And to be more specific, multi-level marketing. Through multi-level marketing, it was a strong business with personal development attached to it. But why did we care about that? It was our first time here being introduced from kids from the age of 17 to 25 making 6 and 7 figures. From that sign, it woke us up like, wow. So that's why we got involved in personal development. That's why we still stuck to it today.
We were introduced to the Jim Rohns, the Zig Ziglars, the Les Browns, and Eric Thomases of the world. It was the first time in our lives, as Cody said, we self-assessed. We self-assessed against something outside of our households. It was the first time we had a benchmark that was counter to our environments. So it expanded our vision for our lives. We want to create a perfect picture for you. Imagine seeing 18, 19, and 20-year-olds making $10,000 and $20,000 a month. And it wasn't that we thought we could make that type of money. It was the fact that it was a possibility that opened our eyes. We began to walk different. We began to talk different. We began to demand more of ourselves. But what was more exciting than seeing the growth in ourselves was seeing the growth in our peer group.
Our peer group, imagine this, 12 different states, 3 different countries, Chicago, West Side, South Side, inner city, suburbs. We began to see people around us grow. I mean, I love talking about myself, but as much as I love that, it's amazing being able to see people that you care about and you invest something into them. But it wasn't just that they were walking different, talking different. It was kids that never began to stand in front of a room and speak. They got a chance to really hear their own voice. They understood that words were power. And what we knew at the time, what our parents didn't know, they just thought it was part of us maturing, getting older. But the way that they were dressing different, talking different, walking different, we understood that everything that was going on the outside was a direct reflection of the growth that was happening on the inside.
It was the first time that we discovered that most people, let alone young people, don't have a problem of intellect. We have a problem of interest. As Cody mentioned, we didn't join the network marketing business for the personal development, but we continued to study personal development way after the business had dissolved. So from that point on, it inspired us to take this information back to our communities. We made a promise at 20 and 21 years old at that point in time, that once we made our millions a lot faster than we thought, mentally at least, and that we would take this information back to our communities. Post-graduation, we began to reverse engineer the growth that we had made over this time. We began to reflect on why we had become so confident, why our perspective had shifted so much, why our expectations for ourselves had heightened to such extent. And what we realized was our programming had changed.
What do we mean by programming? It's everything. We mean your habits. The reason why you walk the way you do, we keep saying that, the reason why you talk the way you do, everything around you is your programming. Why do you like the food you like? Why do you like the music you like? Why do you talk to yourself a certain type of way? chances are it was programmed that you had from ages 0 to about 5. And what Chuck is doing right now is something extremely important.
So, after graduation, we continued to ask ourselves what changed us. And we stumbled across this image of the mind. It was actually introduced to us by a mentor of ours named Bob Proctor. And what this represents is your conscious mind. It's your thinking mind, your educated mind. This is where you store information. This bottom half is your subconscious mind. This is the part of your mind that you don't have control over. But what's most important about your subconscious mind, this is where your programming lies. This is where your behavior comes from. And your programming begins from the time you're conceived to about 5 or 6 years old. Everything you see, everything you hear, we say kids soak up everything, right? It's because they have no ability to reject information. So everything they see their parents behave, everything that they touch, it becomes a part of their programming. So the goals that we have for ourselves, the expectations that we set, our finances, how we act and behave in our relationships, our grades, it's all a part of what we learn from the ages of about 0 to about 5 years old.
So your programming, how is it created? There's 2 ways known to man how the program is created. The first way, DNA, genetics. That's why we look like our parents. That's why we have the same color eyes. That's why we sound like them. That's how we do stuff, and you look at it and be like, man, I hate when my dad do that, but I still do that. It's programming. You can't help it whether you want to or not. The second way
is environment. The environment is honestly nature versus nurture, as I learned from a good friend. The environment is the nurture part of it. It's what you're exposed to. If your mom's a teacher or your dad's a fighter, it's likely that those would be things that you're interested in. If your father watches football every single Sunday when you're a child, it's likely that you'll watch football as you grow up. These are the things that shape our belief system. These are the things that shape our expectations, but more importantly, these are the things that shape our results that we have in our lives. So our programming is set. We want to make sure we emphasize it by our DNA. That's why we look the way we look, and our environment. Cody, you have a great example about environment and the language that we speak.
It's 2 ways that this programming is created. And to create a better picture before we talk about that, exactly what Chuck said, we want to paint the perfect picture with the type of youth we work with. Imagine this, a community where 13% of the city graduates from college. 57% of the city has a high school diploma. So imagine the type of paradigm, the program that you get, the beliefs, the expectations, what you believe you could have. Because chances are, if your parents went all the way through school, you believe you could go all the way through school. If your parents didn't graduate high school, the reflection you have when you see them, you understand that you can't be what you can't see. So these are the limited programs, these are the limited expectations we're talking about. And the first way you change it, and this is what we learned here on campus, Valparaiso University to be exact, repetition. Can you imagine this? Chuck, I'm gonna tell you this one time only. You're about 1 or 2 years old. I'm his mom or dad, whatever preference you wanna make. I'm gonna tell you this one time only. I want you to listen closely. I'm not gonna tell you again.
Yes, sir.
Your name is Chuck. Can you imagine that? How many times did our mom and dad tell us, your name is Chuck, your name is Chuck. What's your name, what's your name? How old are you? What's your ABCs? What's your 1, 2, 3s? Over and over and over again, we have to repeat it so we can get it ingrained into our programming. In the second way.
I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more, Cody, because one of the things that we learned through our experience here, Lil Wayne is quoted saying, repetition is the mother of learning, right? Derek Jeter is Derek Jeter, not because he came out of the wombs as the most talented baseball player on the planet, but because he swung the baseball bat more than anyone else after practice through middle school, through high school, through college. Serena Williams and Venus Williams, a lot of people are familiar with their story. Their father drilled into them that they were great, that they would be special, that they would be the world's best tennis players, despite what society said. It was how many times they repeated the behavior that they knew to be successful. So that's what's important about repetition. That's why what we affirm to ourselves matter. That's why when you tell yourself I'm broke, when you tell yourself I'm not smart, when you tell yourself I'm unhealthy, you are unconsciously programming, it was on the other paper, programming yourself with negative ideas and a negative belief system. And the second way that you change the paradigm is emotional impact. Typically, emotional impact affects us in a negative manner. We tend to stop drinking and driving because we get a DUI. We begin to eat healthier because an illness comes upon us. We begin studying because we fail a class. But there is a equal and polar opposite to everything. When there's a positive, when there's a negative, there's a positive. So we chose to reverse engineer what things happened to us while we were in college that positively impacted our belief system and our programming. Well, for us, it was just seeing young people making a lot of money and taking their future serious right now. Not after they graduated from college, not 10 years into their career, but immediately. But to paint a more clear picture, Cody, I would love for you to dive into some of the things we do within the foundation.
With the foundation, he said emotional impact. He gave you the negative things, but what about the positive things? Well, this past summer, we were blessed and highly privileged to be able to take a group of 14 kids from Maywood, Bellwood, different places on the west side of Chicago, a little bit all over, to Niagara Falls, the Canada side, not just, But what was amazing about that, can you imagine the emotional impact you created? Kids that usually don't get a chance to travel outside the city, outside the state, from the Midwest, crossing the border, getting their passports, the effect it had on them. Because the child don't know what they don't know. As we mentioned before, a child can't be what they can't see. But we had the belief that the more we could build their awareness of things around them, the more they could learn about things around them, they could correlate it to themselves.
We took these two principles. We took emotional impact and repetition and created an entire foundation on what we knew that changed us. And these two principles, off these two principles, we built 3 pillars. They are personal development, unique experiences, and community service. I'll dive into unique experiences. So unique experiences meet the criteria of emotional impact. As Cody mentioned, we don't know what we don't know. So one thing that we do in our program is, on a repetitious basis, we consistently expose our young people to environments counter to their neighborhoods or their hometowns. For instance, we took a group of about 13 high school alternative youth to Fogo de Chao. That's a brilliant Brazilian steakhouse. I'd never even been there.
Not me either.
And the meal was fine dining. They were served, they were treated well. We wanted to treat them like royalty. We wanted to allow them to see that they deserve this and that they could attain this if they put their mind to it. We even gave them the money to pay for their meals and let them choose what they wanted to tip. Our thought process behind this was, it was one opportunity for them to take a step back and evaluate what they wanted for the rest of their lives. And this is one of the ways that we introduce emotional impact on a consistent basis to our young men.
The second way, personal development, how we got started with this in the beginning. As we mentioned, we were not in the self-help section at the library. We got involved with personal development because it was attached to a business model. That's what we were interested in. So for our kids, we treat it the same way. Whether they like science, art, music, basketball, give them that too, but attach personal development. You have to meet the kid where they're at. Meet them halfway. And by meeting them halfway, you can engage them more and understand that they will learn more about themselves through the process.
And the final piece, community service. Once a month, we take our mentees, we intentionally create an opportunity for them to contribute to someone else's circumstance. And we believe that this does 2 things. First, it empowers them to believe that they have something to offer the world. Most people reflect on their circumstance and believe they're the only one going through what they're going through, not understanding that people are going through very similar things. We believe that most people are going through something. It's the same pain painted in a different color is what we say. So it empowers them, and the second, it gives them an opportunity to gain compassion for not only other struggles, but other cultures and what other people are going through. So we created an event called Service. I'll give credit when credit is due.
I came up with the event.
Cody created the event.
Speak about it.
Cody created an event labeled Service Meets Connection. We brought together a group of young professionals of different ethnicities, cultures, and backgrounds, and of different professions, invited them to a high-rise in downtown Chicago. We reserved a party room, and we packed 300 bag lunches for the homeless in the city of Chicago. And we brought our young people there and let them organically create conversation and dialogue about whatever their interest was or whatever came to mind. One thing we knew was it would give our young men a different image of what success looked like. It would also give them an opportunity to see that people are all the same. We all just want to be loved. We want to contribute to something bigger than ourselves, and we want to have a good time while we're doing it.
So, to review it, so we could tie everything back so you understand exactly what we're talking about. We mentioned here at Valpo, we got engaged through personal development, through business, because we were interested in this. While we were here, we used to get in front of a room, speak, get uncomfortable, force ourselves to stretch and grow. That same model we created into the foundation. Repetition, emotional impact, over and over and over again through personal development. Unique experiences, because we know when a child sees more, they can become more. And last but not least, Chuck just mentioned community service. Build compassion. Understand that the problems you're going through is really not that big. It's always relative. And when you're able to contribute to something more than yourself, you're always able to bring the attention away from yourself.
Until we recognize what our programming is, how it's created, and how you can intentionally change it, a lot of the things that we do in terms of our behavior is very short term. We have something programmed in us called a cybernetic system. Valparaiso is an engineering school, so this may resonate with you. A cybernetic system is a part of a thermostat. It's a part of the autopilot system in an airplane. When you set your thermostat to 70 degrees in your home, anytime it gets warmer than 70 degrees, your air kicks on and brings it back down, because that thermostat is programmed for 70 degrees. So in your life, when you're programmed for unhealthy eating, when you're programmed for getting a C in class, when you're programmed for waking up late, there's some things that you must intentionally do, either by repetition or by emotional impact, to change that program. Because no matter what action you take, that programming will kick back in, recalibrate, and bring you back to where you're set. So today we come to you talking, no pun intended, but with the hope that we will inspire you to think beyond your limitations, to take these conversations that we're having in this room, to take the conversations that you have outside of this room, and inspire you to take action. Not tomorrow, not Wednesday,
Not someday.
which is not a day, but today. Thank you so much, Valparaiso University, for this opportunity.
Thank you.